Do you suffer from debilitating migraines? You know, that throbbing pain in the front or side of your head that's so severe you're unable to work or do anything other than retreat into a dark and quiet room? Have you had them for years and just haven't found a solution? Call Dr. Elizabeth Ebersol and put an end to your debilitating migraines forever. Or go to her website at www.handmadehealth.com. That's www.handmadehealth.com.
Well, hello everybody. Kenny Matthews, Billy Martin Jr. How you doing, sir?
Well, I mean, both our alma maters have new coaches as of a week ago. And so, I'm excited about mine. I mean, I guess you lost your coach. You haven't got your new one yet. I was just kind of perplexed about why anybody would leave OU as they're about to join the SEC.
Well, I will definitely have a few hot sports opinions on that for sure coming up here, but we want to appreciate everybody listening to us on Balls on the Wall, episode 14. We appreciate if you subscribe to us at YouTube and Rumble and like us on Twitter and Facebook. If you just click on YouTube and Rumble, all you have to do is just subscribe. It's a very easily processed. That helps us out. We also like to say that we're always open for comments, anything, suggestions to make this program better for you guys. We want you to listen to us in the car, the gym, and the walk, wherever it may be. But we want you to tune into us, guys. All we're going to do is just talk a little sports, keep politics out of it, and we'll try to talk about the subject of the day or the week, I should say. And yes, as my beloved partner has already opened this up to, is the college football scale from last week to this week. Just in a matter of 5 days, boy, the topsy world, the big money, big coaches leaving, going to big branded schools. And man, the fallout and the carnage has been unreal, to say the least. And it looks like every minute this thing goes off like crazy on this fervor, this guy going here, this crew, this recruit, this high school guy. Yeah, my Sunday was pretty full. It's just to say the least. It started off very mild. Came to the office, tried to do a couple of things, download some videos from Saturday's games, and man, it went crazy real quick. Lincoln Riley, obviously everybody knows here, as we're taping here on Wednesday afternoon, is bolted off to La La Land to be the new head guy out in USC. As Billy and I were talking a little off camera, it's $12 million going out that way. There's also some other little perks in there, a private jet at his disposal 24/7, 365 days a year. You can't beat that. They're buying him a $6 million home out in La La Land. Can't beat that. They're buying his home here in Moore, Oklahoma. $500,000 over asking price. And I guess the biggest thing I would say to you is, yes, that money sounds great. I know we're talking about huge money here, but let's try to dumb it down for society purposes a little bit here for people to understand. After a state income tax and a federal income tax, you're probably talking about half of that money going right out the window, off jump. So that's $6 million. That's not including
more than half.
Yeah,
more than half. I mean, just take $1 million off the top going straight to California on that 12% state income tax.
Yeah,
let alone the cost of living and everything else. So
I'd like to see that tax return. It says FICA, state, and look at those multi-comma numbers. That's. But again, let's not feel sorry for him. If he nets $4 or $5 million a year out of $12 million, I think he might be able to buy a dinner every now and then, in La La Land. The other thing is I'm thinking is that, it indeed, to me, it seemed like a money issue, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that it is. And some of the philosophical differences that Lincoln Riley had with the OU administration on some of the things that he wanted, or demands, I should say, going into the SEC in a couple of years. He wants a support staff, and for the people that don't understand what a support staff is, it's generally fired coaches or ex-coaches that are, want to stay in work, and they're basically just film gurus, game plan gurus. Some of them help with recruiting, whatever may be the case. Oklahoma has just one of those as we speak. Most of the big dogs in the SEC have multiple ones. I believe Alabama's in double digits, but most are probably somewhere between 6 to 8 to 9, somewhere in that range, extra help, which, when you're limited on your practice time, that really seems like it minimizes the prep on the 10 active coaches, that can coach in the practice time, because these guys are breaking down game plans or practice plans, whatever may be the case. He really wanted that in his hip pocket. Not sure if Oklahoma was going to meet that or not. I'm not sure of that. It seems a little tedious to me, a little bit on that, because why these guys are only making $10,000 or $15,000 a year, because they're getting paid on their buyouts from their prior universities that they were, that they got fired from. So it's not like that you're having to pay these guys a whole lot of money, at all. I don't see that would be the number one reason for that. But I think there's also, and I know it's a growing sentiment, they think he wasn't thinking he was fully on board going to SEC. Now, on calling the cohort, today, he said that didn't sway him at all. He was behind it. But he also was telling the administration of Oklahoma, if we stay in the Big 12, I'm building a team that can get to the Final Four every year recruiting wise. He finally was assembling a roster that way. And so when they moved to the SEC, he knew we're going to probably be behind that roster competing at that level going into the SEC, obviously. So I think that USC is kind of the same carbon copy that he's got wanted to stay at Oklahoma. You see, you got Oregon, maybe a couple of teams, Utah steps up, whatever, but it's an easier path if you go 11-1 in the Pac-12 or go, 12-1 in the Pac-12 to get to that Final Four, that it is butting your heads with the A&Ms, the Auburns, the Alabamas, LSUs, just in your division, and that's not including the University of Texas. So he knew that's a gauntlet to go through year after year after year, and that's not even counting the crossover games that you may have to go with the other side of the SEC conference. That could be easily a Florida one year, could be a Tennessee one year, just depending on the rotation. So you're looking at a monstrous schedule that's going to be hard to, go 11-1 every year. You already got one big dog in Alabama that's doing that pretty consistently, and you're going to get another one to match that. Tough, very tough. I try not to look at it that way. I think he's more competitive than that, but I can see that rationing. I can see that reasoning. And then, as you and I talked about just off camera, Lincoln Riley can go out his office at USC, get on a bike and ride about a mile, and there's a 4-star in the makings right there. His own backyard in LA, if he just locks down that every year, he's going to be a top 5 team every year. Just talent alone in the Los Angeles area, he doesn't have to leave the state of California and field 25 guys every year that's going to be top level. So,
and be able to pull off of anybody anywhere in the country who's going to love that ambiance, that atmosphere, that come on. And it's not like it's not a storied program. It's not like it's not a great program, so there's a ton of reasons for it. And I get it, but looking at everything you're saying, it's like, I remember when Bobby Knight came to Texas Tech, and that was one of the things he said. Mm-hmm. We're the only game in town. For a 5+ hour drive in any direction, there's nobody here. And so, because it was hard for me to wrap my head around, why would you want to leave OU? From a recruiting standpoint, the whole state of Oklahoma is basically yours for the taking. You're going to come to state, but everybody wants to go there. But you get a ton of Texas kids right here in Dallas that don't have to pay out of state tuition.
Right.
And,
And he had a brand here. He had a brand at
It
Oklahoma.
may not be a great call for OU and UT leaving and going there. It may just end up being great for my Texas Tech Red Raiders. And but I get it to some degree and I hate it to some degree because sometimes, Jim Schlossnagle left TCU as a baseball coach to go to A&M.
Yep.
And Jim's a friend of mine, and he said to me, "Am I crazy, Billy? Am I crazy leaving lifetime security in a town I love?
People idolize you. He could do no wrong there."
No, but going to A&M, where now they're in the SEC, where they have a crazy fan base that if you're not, in the College World Series every 2
Ask
years.
Childers. Ask Childers and Johnson.
I know Mark well. I mean, he did a pretty damn good job there. But at the end of the day, I don't think Jim's crazy because giving a kid a 75% scholarship to TCU still costs mom and dad $18,000.
Sure.
Going to A&M for a 75% scholarship costs them about $1,200. So it's a different world altogether. But golly, that part of it's going to be tougher for them at USC. And but SEC is going to bring on challenges. I think the statement you made that everybody really needs to hone in on is, wait, the best team in the SEC has how many of those guys you're talking about? Double digit?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Guys that don't cost that much money, that all they do is help. It sounds like they got the best football advisory board in the country.
And that resurrects their careers as Sarkisian. I mean, that guy was, no grado, for a while there because, he had some alcohol issues at USC. He had some, very mediocre record at the University of Washington. He goes Bama and wins 2 national championships being the offensive coordinator, and boom, what? He lands one of the plum jobs in the United States as a head coach, even with all the baggage. Look at Kiffin, Lane Kiffin, the same way. Wow. Another guy that goes there, and now he has, a power 5. I mean, so yes, you could go to Bama and there's benefits for that. Not only just coming home with rings, but people are willing to take a second and third chance because they think you're under Saban and you learned how to run a program at the best level for a sustained period of time. I think that's the reason why it's hard, as well as A&M has recruited. Think about this in the last 3 years. They've really recruited a lot of good players. They're stuck with 4 losses this year. Yes, they did beat Alabama this year, yes, but that tells you how tough, the SEC is to navigate.
Absolutely.
And the only team that's been navigating that treacherous schedule is Bama. And guess where Oklahoma's going? Probably that division, Bama's division. So, yeah, like I said before, I can see why you may want to duck and hide and make an easier path to, the to that magic playoff. I get it. He is going to USC. And as like I told you on, off camera, that's not a worse job than Oklahoma. And in some places, it's more storied, I think, in the United States than it is in Los Angeles. It's got its luster in Philadelphia, Texas, whatever, USC. But in Los Angeles, there's so many teams and so much to do in Los Angeles. They're an afterthought sometimes. But now, Pete Carroll, when he was there, he made it a Hollywood scene.
Absolutely.
Is Lincoln Riley going to try to duplicate that? I will be on the phone with Pete Carroll yesterday saying, hey, what did you do to bring all this excitement back to this storied program? Because even when we lost, we still had sold out buildings on the road. We still had a lot of people coming to the Coliseum. We had, people, Snoop Dogg and everybody on the football fields, during games. How do we bring all that back? And I think to me that would be huge for him. But that's really not Lincoln Riley's personality, though. You know, he's not La La Land. He's a Muleshoe, Texas kid. You know, he's a Lubbock kid.
I didn't know he's from Muleshoe.
That's not him.
Wow.
So yeah, there's going to be a transition there, but I do feel that he's going to do an excellent job there because the Pac-12 plays kind of the same kind of defense and offense that the Big 12 plays. There's not going to be a huge adjustment there for him. He's not going to go to the Pac-12 and say, oh, we got this great defense to go against. We got this great defense to go. It's an open game, and that's what Lincoln Riley's about. I think that that's part of some of the criticism he had at Oklahoma is that, we weren't a very physical team because of the way he played. We call it pinball football, arena football. And that made you a soft team at times. But he's going to do an excellent job out there. There's no question. And I know there's a lot of people that are bitter. There's a lot of people. I will just say he wasn't completely honest with the OU administration. So some of the statements that he made publicly about how, OU administration always is giving them what we want. People are a little snickering at that because, he wasn't honest. But in this world, Billy, this is the same thing with Brian Kelly with Notre Dame, LSU. It makes you not be honest because there's negotiations going on. You don't know if you're going to take that job during that time when people ask you. And I was like, hey, are you going to take this next job? Well, if your agent's working through contracts and all this other kind of stuff at the time, you're not officially being named, the coach at that time. So what do you say? Well, I'm looking into it. And if you say that, then you lose your football team that you got at that present time. Once you say that statement, that team quits on you because they know you got one foot out the door. And it's not a done deal. He left being dishonest, but he didn't pull a Tommy Tuberville and just bolt town, and not say anything, but it's kind of close to it, though. It's kind of close to it.
So the thing for the coach to say moving forward would be, I'll consider that job if my team loses any focus in the next few days.
Yeah. I really tried to figure out a way you could say it without, hurting one side of the fence. But one side of the fence is going to be really, they're jaded. There's no way of getting around it. Here's what you do.
You don't answer that question.
Yeah, you don't answer. And by not answering, that means the question gets answered more.
I am currently employed by this university.
Yep.
You want to ask me about our game on Saturday?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You want to ask me about my players, my coaching staff? Let's talk about that. But I don't have anything to say about wishful thinking and possible this or that. I'm hoping to win the lotto next weekend, but we don't need to talk about that either.
Well, I see that now that this is the point that I did want to make. Just a year ago, Billy, we were having bowl games being canceled because of no money, because no fans are going to be there. In less than a year after COVID, messed with the season, we're throwing out record amounts of monies. Absolutely. And meanwhile, we had all those people at those universities taking 10% or 20% cuts off their salary, or just being furloughed, altogether. But yet we could pay the football coach $15 million a year as Brian Kelly's going to get to go to Baton Rouge. There's a disconnect there. To me, just logically, there's a disconnect there. Not saying that these coaches are not worth that money or whatever, but the hardworking people like you and myself are still getting pinched. And it's hard for us to be sympathetic. We're more empathetic at hearing this stuff and the reasons why you leave.
It's always been the case, right? I remember the baseball strike in the mid-90s, and how much did it hurt the billionaire owners and the millionaire players? But it hurt guys like me.
It ruined a franchise in Canada.
Yeah.
That's what it
Yeah, there you go. And it hurt me. I was producing the Texas Rangers baseball manager show, Kevin Kennedy, my
Yep.
first client as a manager, and I produced a
Okay.
television show. I had 13 more episodes sold out that we had to cancel. That we didn't get to use that money for anything.
No,
You know?
money not coming in means money not being spent.
Absolutely. And I had another business that got crushed, and let alone it wasn't good for the agency business and everything. It was just, it's like you said, it's the little guy that always gets hurt in these situations. And I don't know. Let's hope that let's hope we're not talking about another strike in baseball as we push into the new year. But
I was thinking we'd save that until next week, since that we will have maybe we've got some time left on the clock. I feel like it's 60 minutes. I feel like it's Sunday evening at 6 p.m. on CBS. But yes, I mean that deadline's looming here at about midnight tomorrow. So yeah, we're going to talk about that because, man, we got to talk about all the flurry of all the money that came through. I mean, it's been unreal. I mean, hey, our little red shoe Rangers found some Zurich trucks here in the last couple months, and they're throwing out money like it's unreal. I mean, our Rangers.
You know what? And it is. It's funny because I go back and forth. Like, it's exciting for me on one side, and then there's the other side of me that wondering if this is too soon.
Yes.
Are they doing this a year too early? 2 years too early, maybe. But
it was interesting. I heard oh gosh, the beat writer for the Rangers for the Dallas Morning News. God, his name is mistaken. Thank you. And he said what the Rangers are doing or trying to do is what the Astros are doing, where the Astros had the young talent there, and that it was easy for them to go grab and pick a few free agents to come in. He says the Rangers are kind of hoping that you got the veterans here and some of that talent that they brewing or right next to being there, that there's going to come in where you can fill in the gaps with the veteran players. So he said it does seem like you made a great point, about a year or too soon, maybe for them.
To me, I mean, and obviously I talked to a talent evaluator for another club today. I'm trying to get one of my free agents a job. And I said, well, what do you think about the Rangers? And he said, wow, they have 3 great players now.
No.
And that's where he left it. Now, he was being a little bit of a smart aleck because one of the free agents came from his program. But
yeah. Do they get draft pick compensation now?
Yeah, well, and one thing I do like is, they're not having to give up the 3rd pick of the draft,
right?
On this, that would hurt, and I'm not sure it'd be a smart move in today's climate. But
do they lose do the Dodgers gain a sandwich pick? Is it still kind of? I'm trying to remember. Is it sandwich round? So it's right after the first round they get a pick. Somewhere in that 30.
It depends on what the player's classified as, but yeah, with Seager, I think the Dodgers will get not only a sandwich round pick, but I think they'll also get like a 2nd and 3rd because I'm sure
thinking one an additional pick. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. I think he's going to be at the highest level of player. And
thank you for clearing that up with me. I couldn't remember.
And it's interesting. Now, here's a weird one. So they've been hard after Seager, it seems like, from the beginning. And we just saw Javier Baez sign today for less money. And I think they're the same age.
Yes, they are.
And Baez has been a lot healthier for his career. So, I mean, he doesn't cost you any picks.
No, he doesn't. Now, it's a great analogy you're bringing up. I'm not a huge Javi Baez fan. I think he is a hot, cold guy, and he swings and misses an awful lot.
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, that's, no, but it's not that Seager doesn't strike out either, though. I mean, I can't say that he doesn't either. And I do think you make it a great point is health. That's, a long contract for somebody that doesn't, he gets nicked, every year.
And he plays the second most demanding position on the field, shortstop and catcher, by far, to me, the most physically demanding positions on the field. And
absolutely.
And so if you got injury issues at short, that's not going to get better as you move into your 30s.
And look where he was surrounded with ever since he stepped onto a Major League Baseball diamond.
There you go.
I mean, he was not the number one guy. Never was, never would have been, I think, in LA. He hit himself into maybe the second or third spot. Yeah. But I mean, when he came in, there was no pressure for him to carry a team. He is the best player on the Ranger team now. I mean, so yes, when the visiting teams come in, they say, let's stop Seager. How do you react to that when you're the top dog, the alpha dog?
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're right. Giving them both healthy, there's a part of me that likes Seager better, but there's also a part of me that likes Baez better because Baez plays with heart.
He does.
Like a madman.
He plays hard.
He plays the game right. He cranks up the volume of effort for his whole team. And I love that. And so we're talking about $200 million savings almost, right? So that, and not losing the draft picks, that's weird for me. And I almost wonder, is it because they think Seager's going to be more of a fan favorite in Texas? Are they concerned that Baez
speaks English?
Habla inglés. And did Baez scare them with his getting angry with the fans in New York for booing?
I think that had something to do with it. I think if Baez wouldn't have had that in his resume now, I think he probably would have commanded more money on the open market. I wonder if that. Let's just say that teams probably eliminated even trying to bid for the guy because of what he said. And so when you reduce the amount of teams, that affects your market. It's better to have 10 teams interested than 2.
Or had they got a side agreement with Corey Seager's brother to walk in and play third base?
Hence why Ian Kyle-Falefa is on the market now, supposedly, for the Rangers. Because I thought logically they just move him back to third base. I said, well, then, hey, you've got 3+ guys in the infield defensively if you did.
Sure. You know what you also need? You also need that Chris Taylor type, that utility knife that you can play everywhere. And that Kiner Falefa can play everywhere.
Yeah.
If it's my team, I'm wanting him in the lineup every day. But today you're playing second. Tomorrow you're playing short. The day after you're playing third. You're going to catch on Wednesday. You're going to play all over the damn place.
He's got the toolbox. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got to have those guys because people get hurt. Things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Seager's going to get hurt. So I say we keep that guy around.
I do too.
What I wonder is signing Semien, does that say they don't think Solak is all that? Because I really thought he had upside.
I thought he had a lot of upside too, but I mean, now you're talking about, what is it, 2.5? I mean, had to send him to the minors last year. It's been about 2.5 years where he's been on the big league level. And is there enough? To me, is it enough? Has he proven enough? I mean, heck, I think the the Calhoun kid is kind of the same way we got in the Hugh Darvish trade. I mean, they've had plenty of opportunities now to think that they're probably one of the pieces of the puzzle going forward. I'm not sure either one of them are. I just
Yeah,
that's just me.
Willie Calhoun did something to piss him off. So it really feels like he did something, said something to the wrong person.
He's another guy that's been injured a ton too, though. I mean, he can't stay healthy either.
Nope.
We're going to talk about Seager. I mean, Seager looks like Cal Ripken the Calhoun right now. I mean, so in my theory, I think of the reason why the Rangers, they had to overpay because we've got now, basically 5 straight years of a lot of losing. And you got a fan base that I think, the new ballpark was great and all last year, but you want to talk about a fan base that really turned that TV station that to another station when the Rangers were this year. I mean, if it wasn't for me being an absolute diehard baseball guy, I would have never clocked in on Bally's. I mean, I said at the beginning of the year they were going to use 100 games. They lost 100 games. I mean, it was a hard watch in an era where we kind of learned that we could do other things than watch sports all the time,
Sure.
because of COVID. Because of COVID came around, we went without. So when you have 5 years that I think you had to show your fan base that, what? Okay, we cut salaries for 3 straight years. It's time for us we need to play a big market town. We need to start spending some money. And I think that's the reason why they probably overspent, because they had to say, okay, Ranger fans, come back to the new ballpark now. We're trying to field a competitive team.
True. And we're saying I kind of feel like they're shooting their wad a year too early. But if in the next 2 weeks they sign Clayton Kershaw and Kyle Seager, all of a sudden we're going to say, wait a minute. Now we got 2 pretty good pitchers to mix in with these young guys. And I don't know.
Billy, this is a question for you, Billy, and I think you would know it better than me. For me, whenever this collective bargaining agreement gets reached, there's going to be a mad craze to sign a whole bunch of players quickly, but there's going to be some quality veterans that are going to be on the sidelines a little bit. Can't you go get quality guys at the last minute to field a competitive team? Of guys, maybe they're not the best of the loot, but you're going to get some players that have been in the league 6 or 7 years that can still play. And you can go pick them up, at the end, or some bullpen guys, or maybe a back end starter, and you can get them maybe on the cheap, depending on what the collective bargaining agreement is.
Absolutely.
That's something I was thinking about.
Well, think about it. Right now, the Japanese market is a lot of guys are interested in going there because they can get guaranteed money. They know they're going to play. There's not going to be a lockout in Japan.
Right.
And so do you take the job that you're going to get? It really depends on you, your situation, your where you are on the scale. And
sure.
But the Rangers just signed a guy like that too, and Cole Calhoun.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Cole Calhoun a guy like him will be sitting there when this goes down. But man, there's so much unknown.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys are trying to get their deals done before the new agreement because they're afraid this or that may happen.
Trying to get it done so they can pass a physical too before midnight tomorrow. That's another thing. You got to pass physicals before MLB signs off on that contract. So, yeah.
And that may change too. I don't think it will. I don't think that'll change. I think they're always going to require a physical.
Sure.
I don't know.
Well, they should. As well as they should. The Astros found that out when they drafted somebody in the first round a few years ago and found out that, you know what? His arm is not near as good as we thought it was. You need a bionic arm. Guess what? So you have to do. Especially with the amount of money that you're talking about. You can't can't be purchasing damaged goods, buddy. No, that's a good way to get your GM fired real quick because it stunts you in two different ways. It stunts you financially, but it also stunts you in the growth of your team. So yeah,
well, they were just showing on the MLB network of the top 10 signs so far. The Rangers have 3 of them.
Who would have ever thought that Kevin Gausman this time last year would be one of the highest paid pitchers in baseball now? I mean, Kevin Gausman.
I mean, I'm pretty sure, didn't Baltimore just let him walk?
Yes, he let him walk.
I think they DFA'd him, and he took free agency. And like
Alex Woods and those guys are making $100 million contracts where some of them are not even 500 pitchers record-wise. You know, you look at Jonathan Gray's record, it's not very impressive. The ERA is not very impressive. Now, albeit it was Coors Field, I get that. You know, I mean, it's going to be an inflated number. But when you look at John Gray's career record on that first game as a Ranger next year, you're going to go 60-something million for that.
Hey, but at the end of the day, he was the first pick in the draft, and he did go to OU. So
yes,
come on.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And I'll tell him, it's a different game now anyway. I mean, that's the one thing I think we've changed in baseball now is the win-loss record for pitchers now. You know, before that was the only thing when I was growing up that you looked at. You know, somebody was 3-7, boy, they were an awful pitcher. You know, they might have had a 3.5 ERA at the time. You know, but they were awful back then because, I mean, pitchers pitched. You know, I mean, I do worry about Jonathan Gray not going deep in games. He's about a 5-inning pitcher. He was less than that in the second half last year for the Rockies. So I do worry about that because you and I both know that, you know, pitching to a designated hitter, you're probably going to have to do it in the National League anyway, you know, but you're going to have to do it in the American League. That Limpton's games, you know, at Limpton's games. So, I mean, I hope that he's a little bit better with, you know, his amount of pitches that he throws. But, you know, as I said, I do think that the Rangers needed to do something. And if they had to do a little overspending to get the apathetic guy off the couch to turn him in or to take his sons to the ball game, I think in a couple of years it pays off. And you do have 2 good guys. I mean, Simeon's a great guy and Seager's a good guy. So they're good teammates and they're good guys. So if you're going to have them kind of be the face going forward, at least you got 2 really good humans to do that.
Well, and Cole Calhoun is also that guy. I know that. Mike Trout always just said the most about what a great guy he was and how much he liked being his teammate. And
he's a nice player. I mean, he's an underrated player to me. You know, I mean, I just don't think that many people paid attention to Angel games, obviously, for them being as bad as they are. But for the last 4 or 5 years out there, he's been a mainstay. And he's a guy that's been playing every game. You know, I mean, he's not Rodon or what Trout was last year. Guys that have been in and out of lineup, or you know, BJ. I mean, not BJ, but the other left fielder. He used to have a brother that played in the. But anyhow.
Upton.
Thank you, Upton. Thank you. You
Justin,
know, those guys,
Upton.
Those guys have been in and out of the lineup. You know, maybe not Trout so much till last year, but those guys have been in and out of the lineup an awful lot. So, you know, there's something to playing 155 games a year. You know, there is value in that now where, you know, we just back in the day, we just thought everybody played 150, 165 games. You know? And so until those Yankees decided we're going to start doing some platooning in the 50s. You know,
Okay, I got a cool Jonathan Gray story for you that involves both our alma maters. When he was recruited as a freshman to go to OU, the recruiting coordinator at the time was Texas Tech's head coach now, Tim Tadlock.
Yep.
So Tim recruits him, brings him out. When he recruited him, he told him, you are so good, you're gonna have a shot as a true freshman to be in our weekend rotation. Well, it turns out your head coach, Sonny Gray, was it? No, Sonny Galloway.
Oh yeah. Oh,
He said no, he's not ready. So Tim, being a man of his word, went back to Sonny Gray and said, look, I was wrong. You're not going to get a real chance to be a weekend starter. And helped him get a JUCO situation where he could go be the Friday night guy, pitch for a year. But he told him, he said, you go there for 1 year and I will give you your scholarship next year, reinstate the same scholarship so you could step in and be our Friday night guy. And did that, honored that, and lo and behold, he's 1-1 in the draft a year after that. And pretty cool story that a lot of people don't know.
And the difference between a Galloway and a Tadlock, one great human, the other a-hole.
Well, okay, and you know what that shows too? And I've heard that. I don't know Sonny, so I've heard it more than once, and not by Tim. Tim's, and I'd call Tim a friend, but he would never. I maybe after a few adult beverages, I could get him to tell me some of that. But Tim being there, working for him, it is a joke. Tim Tadlock won 3 national championships at the highest JC level. Why did he have to go be Sonny's caddy at a D1, right? Why shouldn't he have been able to step right in like Wayne Graham did at Rice?
Mm-hmm.
After winning national championships at San Jack, he went to Rice and won national championships. Well, Tim's going to do that at Lubbock too, all right? But how much did that delay his career? You know?
No, one thing, it set back the University of Oklahoma because they had the best coach already there.
Yep.
And then Sonny Galloway had 1 foot out the door to go to Auburn.
Yeah. And
the next
he
year I looked
used
up.
that. He used the team Tim recruited
Yes.
to put him on the map so he could go to Auburn. And
2 years later, I'm watching.
How'd he do there?
And 2 years later, I'm watching Mr. Tadlock at Rosenblatt Stadium.
and where was Auburn?
And where was Oklahoma?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of bitterness, but happy for Tadlock. But it was a whole lot of envy that he was on the other side. And Galloway was the one going, all right, I'll coach first base. You know?
Well, here's your good news. Your head coach now is literally Tim's best friend.
Yeah,
Skip Johnson.
Yeah.
And, you know, when those two guys were junior college head coaches, as an agent, if I had a kid who had not chosen a JC, those were the 2 schools I recommended because of those 2 men, because players that played for them got better.
Yeah.
And, you know, like a mutual friend who's a JC coach right now said to me, his only concern about Skip is that he's got such a big heart. You know, will he be able to cut ties, release kids, get rid of guys?
Yep. Take tough decisions.
To do what's best for the program when it's, you know, not good for the kid. And
hard to do. You don't want to break. You don't want to be a dream breaker.
No, and handing out too many scholarships and doing all that stuff. It's tough, but I think you guys are going to be pretty good this year. So,
and I think, well, you need to get a couple players that were out for the year last year, you know, before the season started. So that's going to be huge having those guys back in the lineup. He's recruited extremely well. He's recruited Metroplex, you know, well. He's a guy that, like you said, can't really say any negative things about him. But then when you look at what Oklahoma thinks their standards are baseball wise, he's not meeting that. So that could be ultimately be his demise. It won't be because people don't dislike the guy. He's got to get that bump in order. You know, that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday starter's got to be much better than it has been the last couple of years. since they lost, I believe, the Cavill kid, a few years ago. I mean, they've got to get somebody that's going to miss bats on Friday night and not text your bullpen, so much on Saturday and Sunday. They've been having the guy blow up on Friday night, and having 3 days of bullpen work is never good. So, but yeah, I'm rooting for him big time, But yeah, Tadlock's a good guy. There's no question about that. You won't find a bigger fan than me of that guy, and he's not at the University of Oklahoma. He's at Texas Tech, and I'm still a fan of his.
Well, let's see who's going to be your next football coach.
That's the $1 million question. The rumors have been so rampant, Billy. I swear to you, it's amazing what you can just say on Twitter and there's not any kind of retribution now, even if it's completely false. It's just you can say anything, people are buying into it. I mean, there was heavily rumored that Brent Venables, the defensive coordinator for Clemson all these years under Dabo Swinney, was in town yesterday interviewing. We found that out today that he was not in town yesterday getting any interviews. It's the swirling of the maybe Mike Leach was going to come back. I tell people all the time, I said Mike Leach is great. I said he's not a spring chicken. And I don't know if he's going to want to move from one SEC team to another SEC team and then have to go into that backyard of that SEC team, and play them. I said Mike Leach is probably not wanting to duck for his life on the road so much.
Well, I will see him in the next few weeks.
I know we talked a little bit about that. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I will see him. He's going to be in Texas. He told me in the next couple of weeks. So we're gonna meet and have some adult beverages and talk about things. But wouldn't that be something funny? The former Texas Tech coach taking over OU.
Speaking on that Tech theme, the rumors of Cliff Kingsbury wanting to come back to the college ranks. I mean, Cliff did not answer the questions yesterday. But I also told people, that Cliff's in the last year of his NFL contract. So his agent probably said, don't close that door. We like leverage when it comes to negotiations. So I don't take him seriously for that. Although, I mean, his team is 9-2 and he's got a franchise quarterback. Kind of hard to walk away from that, being the number 1 seed in the NFC as we speak right now. And he's also proved all the naysayers that were saying that offense was not going to equate in the National Football League. And now you see variations of that offense being, trickled down in the National Football League. The one thing we know about coaches, they have egos too. They got egos just like players. So, Cliff's doing this at the highest level now. Is there a reason to go down to college and deal with 18, 19 and, disgruntled fan bases and all the other kind of stuff?
Not at all.
I mean, I know that blue bloods are paying more than what the National Football League head coaches are getting. So I know wives, factor into that too at times. Well, we're only making $3 million here and you can make 8 over there. Why are we still here? That was another heavy run. It's been a lot. And tell you, if anybody tells you we know who is going to be the coach at OU right now, I think they would be, not being true to themselves right now. One thing about Joe Castellanon, he's going to keep things real close to the vest. He's not going to let this get out into the public, on that. He's just not that type of person. He's been there over 20. I mean, heck, think about this. He was there when he hired Bob Stoops. So, he's been been there for a long time. So, and I think he also knows that this is an important hire. You think about this, the last 2 hires at the University of Oklahoma have been home runs on the football side, back to back between Bob Stoops and Lincoln Riley. Ask the boys down south in Austin about hiring. It's not an exact science, man. It's just not. And I mean, Lubbock's going through that now. Texas Tech, how many times they've had guys. So I think he knows that his legacy is really going to be either tarnished or it's going to be, he's great on this next hire. So I think he has to be very thorough on this. What is the guy that's going to, and then you have this SEC monster on the backside. Do you go with somebody who's got SEC experience already in coaching, that goes through all those fields? Is Oklahoma going to allow, I know we're not supposed to say this, bagmen to be around? Their compliance department is one of the toughest compliance departments in America. I mean, if practice is over at 3:00 and you go 3:01, the compliance department is on that field in Norman saying, get off the field. So, and that's because of the Bomar situation a few years ago. They don't ever want to get caught in those kind of situations. Well, I'm sorry, sometimes you're going to have to look the other way, Billy, because you're not going to compete on the other way if there's not any McDonald bag fulls of money for some of these kids running around. I mean, and we'd be foolish to think that's not the case. I mean, really, if you tell me that nobody's getting any money at LSU or Auburn or Alabama, I'm going to look at you and say, man, you are completely lying to yourself. And big boy,
but it's not even going to be illegal now, because by rules, you'll be able to make this stuff happen.
Absolutely.
Without breaking any rules at all.
I think I read somewhere now where every semester, every athlete at the University of Texas now, with this NIL new rule comes out, they can get $5,800 per semester now, just a check from the University of Texas going to them. And I kept thinking, all right, if it's 5,200, oh, we made a clerical error and it says 115, comma 8, or it says 15 for that girls basketball player. I think the NCAA is trying to hold on to that thought that they're a clean sport. They're trying desperately to hold on that, but it's gotten out of control now. I think it's out of the horse is gone, ain't coming back, and so yeah. Can you compete on those levels? That's going to be the biggest thing for Oklahoma. I mean, I think you can get a really good coach to come in there, and his record's not going to look like prior that Bob Stoops and Lincoln Riley have, just because the competition level is substantially upgraded. So is the OU fan going to be happy with an 8-4 record? Probably not. Probably not. And does that get you fired? I mean, you think about the West, and this is my final point on that. Gene Chizik wins a national championship. 2 years later, he's fired. Ed Orgeron wins a national championship 2 years ago, and he's fired. They fire you quick in the SEC, man. I mean, they really do. The days of Phil Fulmers and those guys staying around, or Nick Saban staying around that long in that gauntlet, now I think they're far and away. I just think those days are almost completely gone.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's smart on their part.
I don't think so either. It's impatience. It's impatient.
I don't think you can. It's a process. I mean, Alabama's a different bird altogether, but look around. How many teams win 2 years in a row in college? I mean, when I was at Texas Tech, we went to the Toilet Bowl or the Nacho Cheese Bowl about every 2.5 seasons. We'd go somewhere, and we'd be in Shreveport or somewhere. You can't expect anybody, I don't think, with the turnover of college athletes, to sustain multiple years in a row like that, let alone when you're in the SEC dealing with all that. So
that's Dan Mullen.
Mm-hmm.
That guy was a darling this time last year. He loses a very close game in the SEC championship game just a year ago to this weekend. He loses to Alabama by 10 points, and he's on the job market now. There is zero patience in this big boy game called NCAA football now. The money, the fan base, all that goes with it now, the big contracts, trying to get, super conferences and all, that's just escalated, the win now philosophy. They're trying to come in and try to build a program from the ground up now. You might not get through your contract anymore. You might not get through your contract for that. Those boosters say, hey, we got big money over here. We'll buy that out. That's not a problem. Let's go get the next up and coming guy.
And maybe that's why they pay those guys lifetime money.
Yes.
So
absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
I'd like to put Kenny's and Billy's name in the hat to be considered as recruiting coordinators and the next head coach.
I would love to be in a job where you can fail and they'll pay you money to go away. That's what I'd like. It's like,
hell yeah.
Go away, man. We don't care about this, dude. Go. Shoes. You don't have to work here. You'll still get paid.
Well, that's the way that
we're wrong business. There's no question. No question. Hey, I do want to have a quick topic with you, real quickly before we go. But we want to say, hey, subscribe to us on YouTube and Rumble. Just click on the subscription button there for us, man. We appreciate it. Balls to the wall. And like us on Twitter and Facebook. We greatly would appreciate that. And Billy, I wanted to say a couple things about the Cowboys. Just 3 weeks ago, we were, talking them up about, home field advantage, maybe going through the gauntlet, all that. Now we play some better teams. We've had a better competition, narrow wins against some of the good competition. Now, Denver was kind of one of those, national football-like games you can't explain. It's just one of it. But the Raiders coming to town last week and getting on the Cowboys early and being, kind of the front runner in most of it, that was what was most surprising to me, is that you thought that, a team that seems liftless, for, the last 3 weeks since the Henry Ruggs, since the John Gruden stuff and all that, they were limping around pretty good. It just got whacked at home by the Cincinnati Bengals, 5 days prior to that game. That was very surprising to me. And I guess my theory would be to you, has the COVID kind of caught up with the Cowboys a little bit? It seems like they've been dealing with this issue since the end of training camp, and it just seems like it keeps rearing its ugly head. So do you have guys that are not 100%? Do you have a divided locker room on some of the guys that are not vaccinated and the guys that are getting sick? I mean, we got Cooper. I mean, you saw where Michael Irvin blasted Amari Cooper for not being, vaccinated. And it looks like Cooper might not even be able to play tomorrow. So, that's 3 games you're talking about he's going to miss due to COVID.
And 5 coaches.
Yeah. And then your
5
head coaches. Yeah. I'm trying to find a reason. Maybe I'm grasping at straws a little bit. I'm not trying to, but I think it's got to have something to do with it.
It's not right.
Something's not right. I don't know what it is.
Well, look, Dak was a mess 2 weeks ago, but also guys have to catch football.
Yes, a lot of drops.
There were 5 drops that hit both hands or the helmet or all 3.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry. That should not happen to an NFL receiver. He gets 2 hands on the football. He's got to make that play.
Absolutely.
And that will suck the life out of your team. It will harm your quarterback's confidence. I mean, yeah, you can handle 1 or 2, but when it just keeps happening like that, and it's one of those things that drives me crazy, because I was that receiver in high school that could catch anything and could do nothing after I caught the football, but get lit up. And I'm certain I was in every highlight video for all the other schools in my district, because I'd make the catch and just get blown up and knocked out of. I literally got taken off the field against Richland High School and came down on their bench by their all-state cornerback and broke my wrist on the bench. And
so negative yards after catch. So you had negative yak yards.
No, I could catch anything, but I couldn't do anything after I caught it. And so, but I can never understand. That's why our coach had me hold extra points, because I have great hands. Right. I don't get it. When it hits 2 hands from an NFL football player, that ball's got to be caught. And it's 99.7% of the times, it's focus.
Sure.
You look at that receiver and his eyes are starting to drift he's already starting to look where he's going to run or who's about to hit him, and he's not looking that ball into his hand.
Cedric Wilson was big with that at Kansas City, that one down the seam that he ran. You know, he dropped it. Now, you could say he thought he was going to get absolutely blasted, from the safety. But
You're going to get blasted anyway.
Yes, well, I was going to say, you're going to get blasted anyway. And any way you look at it, though, you make a great point. It's focused. He makes that catch then. You maybe only have a one possession game on that last drive for the Cowboys at Kansas City, as opposed to a two possession drive. It hurts you down the road, on drives, and especially in a game like that where points were at a premium at Kansas City. Points were at a premium. What a big score! What was it, 19-9 was the final in that game? I mean, 3 points goes a long way, at that situation. So
and the momentum is huge in football. It's huge in every sport. But when you miss a play like that, when you miss a catch, and you get a bad call, it takes the air out of your sails. And just like this last game, do you remember a ball that they ended up calling a fumble that was absolutely a catch?
Yes.
That an amazing play was made to save that football, keep it in bounds. Cowboys football. Talk about a momentum shift, hype. Everybody's jumping up and down, going crazy. And that was a terrible call. That was absolutely a catch. He had the ball, his both feet. He made two and a half steps before he fumbled it. And that, to me, that one play is what cost that game. Now, you shouldn't let that happen. You shouldn't need that momentum, but come on, we're human.
Well, that head referee is Mr. Hockley, not the Ed Hockley, but his son now is the runner of the referees in the NFL. And I have a stat for you. He is now, the home team now is 2-9 in games that he officiates now. 2-9. And how many penalties were called in that game?
Was he a little bit sensitive?
Yeah. How many penalties were called by that crew last week? It was unbelievable. It was like every other play there was a close. I mean, some of those holding calls were not even remotely holds, on both teams. Yeah, exactly.
No, right. We saw more yellow flags flying through the air than we did footballs.
Hard to get a rhythm that way. It's very hard to get any kind of momentum, any kind of steam that's going, because, holding calls are one of the most hardest ones to overcome in the National Football League, because every yard is such hard to get in the first place. You set a team back on 2nd and 20, man, there's not many plays that are going to get you 20 yards in that situation, to do that. And I just felt like that whole game, there was, whenever somebody would needed to make a big play, there was something else that got in the way of it, wherever maybe the play. Now, the Cowboys got a huge break in that, the 2-minute warning, when the Raiders get, 6 yards on the first play, it's 2nd and 4. Why is he even running the play when the clock is running? Cowboys were going to let it go to the 2-minute warning to hold on to their timeouts at that point in time. He hurries, he gets up to the line of scrimmage, false start on the right. And then the next play, the guy goes out of bounds. So you had to run another play before the 2-minute warning at that point in time, where it should have been 2nd and 4, 2 minutes in the game, timeout. And so that gave Dak plenty of time to get back down the field to kick the winning field goal. And that, it was a strange game all the way around. It's, they're a beat up Raider team, and here's Deshaun Jackson that was on the streets 2 weeks ago, eating up Mr. Brown in corner, all the time. Like I said, there's something not right with the Cowboys, and I think COVID has a lot to do with it. Now you get some guys coming back. I don't know if Cooper's going to play, but I do believe CeeDee Lamb is going to play tomorrow night, so that will help. Anytime you have Cooper and CeeDee Lamb on the field, you make your team much better offensively, and you're probably not worried about drops near as much, at that time. But, one thing that the Cowboys need to get back to, though, and I think they're a better team when they do this, run the football. They're not really running the football very much. And And I'm not sure why. I mean, why are you wanting Dak to be a Superman week after week after week after week? I'm not sure. But you've got a pretty darn good offensive line, and you've got two capable backs behind there. Why are they not running?
I'm with you. That's what wins football games. Whoever controls the line of scrimmage wins the game. So run it down their throat.
Flabbergasted by it. I really am at the, when you look at just for you guys, go look at the game rushing yards and rushing attempts for running back. Gosh,
Zeke?
Yeah.
Zeke?
Yeah.
Zeke or
Just go
Pollard?
look at them. Yeah, they're horrible. He's only got one game over 100 yards this year. One game out of 11. I mean, we already said that contract was way too expensive and unneeded. Well, you know what? If you don't give him the football, he's definitely not going to earn it if he's only rushing 10 or 11 times a game.
No, and it really is. They're two great complementary backs.
Absolutely.
That people keep saying, "Oh, Pollard's better." No, he's not. They're a great combo because Zeke pounds it in there. He breaks tackles. He's always moving forward, watching. He always falls forward an extra couple of yards.
In the passing game, he's great too. He's got great hands.
He's got great hands. He knows how to get open. He knows how to catch the football. He's comfortable out there. No, and then Pollard comes in. He's a little bit quicker and a little bit smaller and a little bit more agile. And it's awesome. I love watching them both, and you need them both.
McCarthy, run the football. It's okay to punt. It's okay to punt. Run the football, because if not, you can't have Dak running around trying to make plays in mid-January, late January. It's a week later. You can't be running around in Lambeau Field in the cold trying to make plays during the pass game. You got to run the football. It's just, maybe Pat Mahomes can get away with it, but we found out last year he couldn't in the Super Bowl when, he lost his couple offensive linemen and, Tampa Bay said, all right, we're going to force you to beat us through the air. But that's a rarity. You've got to run the football. And so, Mike McCarthy, please run the football. Anyhow, but Billy, man, it was great to get back here after Thanksgiving break. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Hope you ate well and got to see the kids and all that. So I had a great time myself. We do appreciate you listening to us on Balls to the Wall, episode 14. Appreciate you subscribe to us on YouTube and Rumble. Like us on Twitter and Facebook. Please offer any comments. You hit me on Twitter at Kenny Matthews anytime. Appreciate you always, guys. We love doing this. My favorite time of the week. Billy, thank you for working with me on the schedule. We did a little earlier today, so got to work. And I want to see that cowboy hat one more time before we go.
Well, I'm on my way to the ballpark actually to go to the Van Gogh experience, and so I figure I had to dress appropriately.
Now that looks like Billy Martin Sr. That looks like Billy Martin Sr. right there.
My father would slap the what out of me for wearing this goofy cowboy hat, but
thank you so much, Billy, man. I look forward to getting back to you guys next week. Listen to us on Balls to the Wall.